third largest economy on Earth. 90% of its energy is imported by sea. 3,600 vessels a day pass through corridors that rivals could close overnight. Japan's strategy for survival has never been more exposed, and the pressure is building from every direction. Chinese Coast Guard vessels now patrol near the Senkaku Islands almost daily, often crossing into Japanese claimed waters. In 2023, these ships began carrying 30mm cannons, a clear escalation from previous unarmed encounters. At the same time, North Korea's missile launches have become more frequent and unpredictable. An intercontinental ballistic missile overflight in 2024 triggered emergency alerts across Hokkaido, pushing public anxiety to its highest level in a decade. Russia, too, has stepped up joint military drills with China in the Sea of Japan, adding electronic warfare exercises to the mix. The United States and China are locked in open competition for influence across the region, raising the risk that any local incident could spiral. Polls now show that 70% of Japanese citizens see China as the main security challenge, and more than half view North Korea as a persistent threat. Defense strategist Dr. Yuki Kobayashi warns that Japan's margin for error is shrinking. The room for miscalculation is gone. Japan's survival depends on a web of sea lanes that thread through some of the world's busiest and narrowest waters. The Kuroshio Corridor alone carries 3,600 vessels each day, a dense stream of tankers, bulk carriers, and container ships. The Tsushima Strait, barely 20 kilometers wide at its narrowest, channels over 1,100 ships daily, each one a potential target in a crisis. East China Sea routes funnel 70% of Japan's liquefied natural gas imports and 15% of its crude oil through the Senkaku and Okinawa bottlenecks, where the distance between opposing coasts can shrink to just 16 kilometers. Port infrastructure clusters tightly along the Pacific coast. Tokyo, Yokohama, and Osaka together handle the majority of container traffic, creating geographic points of pressure. Undersea cables and pipelines converge in the same regions, making disruption a real threat. The seabed's steep drop-offs and shifting currents limit alternative routes and complicate repairs. Each choke point, whether a strait, a port, or a cable landing, turns geography into a source of national vulnerability. In this exposed environment, restraint is not just policy, it is necessity. Article 9 of Japan's 1947 constitution renounced war and banned the maintenance of armed forces. For decades, this clause defined the limits of national power. But the legal bedrock began to shift in July 2014, when the cabinet issued a new interpretation. For the first time, Japan claimed the right to collective self-defense, permitting military action if an ally's survival was at stake. In December 2015, the Diet passed security legislation by a margin of 300 to 70 in the lower house and 227 to 85 in the upper house, codifying this reinterpretation. Ambassador Kenji Watanabe, now retired, recalls the tension. He said, "Restraint was our shield, but it also became a starting point for renewal." These legal changes gave Japan a new strategic flexibility, while the core prohibition on aggression remained intact. Factories along Japan's Pacific coast hum with a quiet intensity. In cleanrooms, workers handle silicon wafers destined for the world's most advanced chips. Japanese firms now supply about 35% of global semiconductor equipment, with Tokyo Electron and Shin-Etsu at the heart of this supply chain. The same industrial backbone powers shipyards in Nagasaki and Yokohama. Last year, Japanese yards produced over 7 million gross tons of vessels, from LNG carriers to advanced naval hulls. These ships keep trade flowing and serve as the foundation for maritime defense. Beneath the waves, JOGMEC teams survey the Nankai Trough and Kuroshio Ridge, mapping reserves of methane hydrates and rare earths. Industry executive Haruka Sato describes the mood. Every ton of steel, every wafer, is a line of defense. This network of technology, heavy industry, and resource exploration underwrites Japan's ability to deter threats and supply its own security forces. Defense spending now approaches 2% of Japan's GDP, reaching nearly 9.6 trillion yen for fiscal year 2025. The 20th F-35, a stealth fighter, entered service last spring, joining a growing fleet that trains alongside United States squadrons. Along the southwestern islands, new coastal missile batteries have become operational, extending the reach of anti-ship defenses across the East China Sea. The Amphibious Rapid Deployment Brigade, established in 2018, conducts regular exercises on the Nansei Islands, rehearsing scenarios for remote island defense. Reciprocal access agreements with partners like Australia and the United Kingdom allow Allied forces to use Japanese bases, tightening operational links. These capabilities now form a visible deterrent, backed by a hard-edged alliance framework. Nearly 90% of Japan's energy supply arrives from abroad. Oil, liquefied natural gas and coal cross thousands of kilometers of open water, funneled through a handful of narrow sea lanes. This dependence creates leverage points for rivals. In 2020, China imposed rare earth export restrictions, disrupting Japanese manufacturers and exposing the fragility of supply chains. The government responded by expanding strategic stockpiles and seeking new partners, but the risk remains. Undersea cables, critical for finance and defense, converge at hubs like Kagoshima and Fukuoka, single points where sabotage or accident could sever 60% of Japan's external data flow. In a crisis, these exposed links could be targeted for coercion, with consequences reaching deep into the economy and daily life. Japan's population is aging faster than any other major nation. By 2050, nearly 2 out of every 5 citizens will be over 65. The working-age population, once the engine of growth and defense recruitment, is shrinking by 1 million people every year. Economic growth has slowed to less than 1% annually. Pension and healthcare costs now absorb more than a third of national output, crowding out spending on defense and infrastructure. Demographic scholar Dr. Keiko Yamamoto notes that every year the fiscal room for new security initiatives narrows. The government faces hard choices: how to balance protection with the realities of a smaller workforce and rising social obligations. Japan faces 3 measurable futures. In the first, deterrence grows. Joint and solo military exercises top 30 a year, with new drills like Integrated Pacific and Northern Shield tightening US and Japan defense ties. 4 new semiconductor fabs break ground annually, adding 1.6 million wafers a month and strengthening domestic supply. Energy import concentration drops as hydrogen deals, and LNG swaps lower the top 3 supplier share below 55%. A second trajectory sees escalation. Regional tensions drive defense spending to 2% of GDP. Exercise counts jump to over 36 a year, and blue water patrols become routine near disputed islands. 6 chip foundries start up each year, targeting 4-node leadership, but energy dependence sharpens, with over 2/3 of LNG and half of oil imports now coming from just 3 sources, raising exposure to supply shocks. The third scenario is retrenchment. Economic and demographic pressures narrow priorities. Military drills fall to a dozen per year, focused on homeland defense. Semiconductor investment slows to 2 new fabs annually, with a pivot toward importing advanced chips. Energy import concentration rises again, with more than 70% of LNG and 55% of oil tied to traditional suppliers. Exercise frequency, fab starts, and import ratios mark the path Japan takes. Japan stands at a crossroads, resourceful but exposed. As regional tensions accelerate, every decision carries new weight. In a world shifting beneath its feet, resilience is not optional. Your perspective matters. If you enjoy exploring the strategies shaping our world, consider subscribing to Strategic Nations. Continue the series by exploring another country. And tell us in the comments, which country should we explore next?